Hello everyone, welcome to the Phoenix Phenomenon. I am your host, ghostwriter Roxanne McCarty-O'Kane. Thank you for joining us for another episode where we delve into the transformative process of becoming an author and talk to the change makers who know this journey all too well. Today I'm joined by Erin Barnes, who is a specialist in physical health, mental well-being and stress resilience. She founded Next Generation Wellness and created the 4Cs methodology, which allows sustainable behaviour change, stress resilience, and high performance among individuals and organisations. The 4Cs methodology is very unique as it blends the latest science and research across positive psychology, neuroscience, leadership, nutrition, human biology, mindfulness, emotional literacy and exercise physiology. I had no idea you could combine so many elements. It's amazing. And the reason that Erin is joining us here today to talk about authorship is that she's also created the Whole Life Success Planner and My Best Life Planner for Kids. So our first planners on the series, and they are absolutely fabulous. So this is the grown-up version. It's so beautiful. I just love holding it. So everyone, a bit of a rundown about all of your amazing skills, and I know that there's a lot more that I haven't mentioned. But can you tell us a little bit about the journey that you led on and your lived experience that got you into the field you're in now?
Sure. So I, 20 years ago, actually it's probably a bit more, every year passes and I think I better regroup on that. It's probably a little bit more than that, but about 20 years ago when I studied formally around exercise science, human movement and psychology, it was really interesting. So they were all together to work out human performance and how we can get the best out of our body and brain and all of those things. And it was really interesting because at that time in my second year of uni, I went from training at elite level for netball to, in a 3-month period, all of that just being taken out from under me. So I went from that to then being unable to walk, being unable to do anything. And as a doer, that was probably the hardest bit, that relentless fatigue. And so I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is fairly common these days, unfortunately, autoimmune diseases are. But back then, the best they could do was say, I'm sorry, take this medication. The best you can do is minimize the damage. By the time you're 40, you won't most likely be walking. You certainly won't be playing sport. Thank goodness we got to that age and we're good. But it led me on this process of, I was very, show me the science behind everything. So if there was someone that was closed book like this about anything to do with mindfulness or anything that I couldn't see, I was the biggest skeptic in the world. And whilst a lot of those practices are very common today, they weren't then. So after I got out of that little pity party of, this isn't fair, I'm studying how to do all this stuff and be the best and have potential and be optimal health, and I wasn't. Once I got past that, I started to really look at what were those missing links. And it did definitely lead me into the place of more that emotional and mental stress and the impact that had on the body. And again, it's very common these days to understand it, but it wasn't then. So my process was trial and error, what worked for me. And I was a very resistant and slow learner with a lot of those modalities. So what I look at now and what makes perfect sense to me is that I was an absolute control freak. And that control or need for control came from my personality type, which is one that is holds self to high levels, high standards, so a perfectionist type of person. I also had that over-functioning anxiety, which means you can be effective, but the anxiety is having a stress response inside the body and causing all sorts of damage. And I was also someone that was personality-wise, was very pessimistic. So the caution side would come out. And so all of those things stacked together just meant that inside the body, the inflammation was high. So it wasn't just about food and exercise and the things that we knew about the physical body. It was the whole stacking game of all of it. So as soon as you start to unpack and we're not looking for that quick fix, then we can do it. So I guess, the culmination of all of this is that work, and then working with people and understanding how incredibly unique we are. And whilst there are patterns, we've got to do the work to find our unique triggers and things that are playing a part. Yeah.
Absolutely. And obviously you came from an elite sporting background, but I'd love to find out, you know, the kinds of people that you are working with. Are you seeing people from all walks of life going on with you?
Yes, it's funny in business because you're told in business to niche down and work with certain people. It does not work for me. Most of the work comes through referral. So, of course, if someone knows someone that's challenged, they could be any age, any gender, children, adults, workplaces. So it's really broad. I guess the majority of people that I work with are typically, they're not people that believe that there's anything wrong with them necessarily. They're people that have that mindset of, you know, this could be better. So they are sort of, yeah, not high performers, but they're people that know that there's a process to things, and things aren't a quick fix. So they realise it's a journey, not a workshop, really, to make changes.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I understand I'm putting you on the spot with this question, but the 4Cs methodology just has me intrigued. I'd love to see if you could maybe give us a bit of an insight into how that works in practice and yeah, what results you've seen.
Yeah, so the 4Cs, basically, they actually sit over the brain and the parts of the brain that lead us to do something. So if we think of the brain, you know, we have this part, that prefrontal cortex, that says we are capable of anything, so pure potential. However, we only use that about 5% of the time, and so we're on autopilot a lot of the time. There's also this part that's the reticular activating system that lets us see what we believe. So we're getting 4 billion bits of information that hit the brain every second, and we can only process about 2,000 of those. And the things that we process and take on are the things, you know, they're supported by what we believe. So those beliefs are created when we're about 8 years old. So for many of us, although we have potential, we're caught up in this autopilot thinking, which leads this signaling to action parts of the brain to say stop, go, all of these things. So it was very much an understanding of, whilst so many people may know what to do, there's a lot of outdated information that needs rejigging, but even when we know, it's not that simple to actually put it into practice. Because we're on autopilot so much. So the 4Cs stand for clarity. So there is no way that we can achieve a goal or move towards change of any kind if we are not crystal clear on what we're doing. So the clarity piece is, when I work with people or when they do this work themselves around any change, is around knowing what the big picture is, the direction they're wanting to go to. It is around their personality type, their emotional needs, their human needs, around their intrinsic motivators, all this understanding of who am I as a person, compared to maybe who I was told I was, or the identity or self-concept that I created when I was a kid. You know, so we look at all those fears and those limiting beliefs, and we begin to change that, because what I see in society a lot these days is that we're chasing societal goals and we're trying to do what other people value and not what we value. So it's coming back to all those important things like values. So clarity is one. Once we're crystal clear on that, often what needs to happen is we need to work on these conflicts in our brain that says, I want that, but actually this little part, the 8-year-old part of me, says, you're kidding yourself. Who do you think you are? Or any variation of that. So the next bit is building this conviction around the fact that actually it is possible, which takes interrupting autopilot. So we're bringing that frontal cortex online a bit more. So that takes, whilst I love self-awareness, we've already gone through a whole process when we get to be self-aware. So the process of how I work with the 4Cs and the planner is about, how do we put little things in to actually interrupt us through the day to input new data so that we can build that conviction. So the brain doesn't know what's real and what's not. So it's a matter of, let's override it and make that dream voice louder than the fear voice. So that's the conviction bit through a lot of different thinking practices and doing. And then it's around consistency. So my belief is that consistency is our position. So it's not about, if we're looking at health, it's not about having the green smoothie, you know, each morning, but then eating rubbish for the rest of the day, or, you know, it's this consistency is it. So it's around, again, how do we build in the consistent patterns to support what we're seeking and support the mental change and the behavioural change, so that it suits our lifestyle, not what everyone else is doing too. So once we get to that consistency level, the fourth C is charge. So this is this place of, we've got really good accountability practices in place. We've got this posture of integrity and self-confidence to know that there's nothing wrong with us. It's just some wiring sometimes, or the things that have stacked together to take us away. So it's a brain process linked with a body process linked with a behavioural process. And the same thing with coaching. If there's just one minor area that people work with, it might be self-confidence. We can go, let's get clarity on what that looks like. Let's build in those things. And so it's just a very clear process of the things we need for the brain to change.
Absolutely. You make it sound so like not easy, but like just so clear. Like there's so many different elements going on there, but yeah, it all makes perfect sense. So
yeah. It's simple to understand. It's just sometimes we're hard on ourselves because it's hard to continue with. So I think once we understand how it works and how complex it is, we can start to focus on the little wins, which help us to move forward in things. But we need the quick fix so often these days.
Absolutely. Yes, that's definitely a pandemic in itself, isn't it? The quick
Absolutely.
fix. So, yeah. All right, excellent. And so I'd love to find out more about how your planners came to be. So, I mean, with something as complex as what you do, there was potential to sit down and pour it all out into a traditional style book. But I love that you've taken that and chosen to create something that, you know, is tangible and practical that people can actually work with. So, yeah, tell me about how the seeds were first planted for that.
Yeah, well, actually, I was. The 4Cs book was always there, and it was going to be this mix of story, probably more other people's story, because, you know, we're never very good at telling our own or feeling like that it's important. So that sat there and it kept sitting there. And so it never came to fruition. And that came through just the frustrations, I think, in my industry around the fact that when we're in challenge, we try and find the solution in that moment. And usually the reason that is occurring is through this stacking game of years of stuff. And so I was always challenged when people would say, well, tell me what to eat, or tell me what to do to get this thing. And, you know, even if it was a physical health weight loss issue or a pain issue, people would want the food and exercise. I was like, okay. And I used to get so frustrated to try, and I felt like when I was trying to explain, but there's more to this and I don't want you to fall short on this, that it was too complex to do in workshops. It was too complex because it's a process. So interestingly enough, all this back end, the internal pages in terms of the content was there because it was what I had developed over that 20 years and what I would work with people on, but I was sending it back and forth and they were sending it to me. There was another frustration around all of us that when I would sit there with somebody and say, well, tell me what precedes that behavior, you know, what's the thinking, we don't know, because we're so busy and distracted most of the day that we can't pinpoint that. Or we might say, oh, I don't have confidence, or something broad, but we're not sure on what that internal dialogue is saying. So what I guess that the internal page were what I used to give to people to use consistently so that they could see their patterns of thinking and feeling and behaving and start to understand that a lot of things that they can do is within their control. But when COVID hit, it was this moment of, do you know what, kids, so I was talking to a lot of people and their work had been taken away from them. And so they were really lacking this feeling of meaning and purpose. So it was like, well, we can bring that back. It's just a formula. So how do we do that? And then I thought, actually, you know, kids need this. Most of my outcome focus is on the next generation. And so it is, how do we as parents learn it? And how do children learn the skill from a young age? And how do all personality types learn to be accountable to self, not just the process-driven people? So it was this, all right, we need to pull this together. And we needed a hands-on tool because a lot of people were not, and understandably, were not going to commit to paying money to work one-on-one with people. And there's a lot of programs, but again, we fall short because we're left to our own devices a little bit and our own minds. So the process of these two planners was actually a 4-week from let's do this to design to print. So it was intense and it was really busy making sure it all went together properly. But the work was really the 20 years before of all the work that I had done with people. So it's a different process. It wasn't like birthing a novel type book. And beautiful Larissa Tickle at Tickle Design, she designed them all. So it was so lovely just to say, here it all is. Can you make it look pretty and make it all right? And also my sister from The Splendid Word, she did a lot of the copywriting and things to make sure that it was okay. But then it was self-published from that point. And you know what, sometimes when the necessity's there, you get out of your own head and you just make it happen. And so that was definitely the process to really bring something together that allowed people to have a sense of purpose in their life, but learn the well-being skills, all the variety of things that we need in a day to raise optimism. There's the optimism practices in there, which at that point when COVID hit, gosh, that was important to make sure that we were bringing in each day. As someone that wasn't very good at taking time out for mindfulness practices, I could do those success goals. But those eulogy virtues of being mindfulness, empathetic, optimistic, all of those types of things wasn't really my skill. So it was like the person that wants to achieve, the planner allowed them to put in pockets, schedule mindfulness. And so it came to life pretty quickly, but it's been really well received, and you know, people get to do it their way, which is nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's stunning. Like even just feeling the cover, like it looks like you've gone all out with making something that people can really connect with, and you know that they want to hold it, they want to explore its pages. It's just such a planner.
And well, it's interesting because when the first batch that got printed, I couldn't get them printed hard cover as quickly as I wanted to. We just needed them out. So the first batch were just the soft cover, and I was using it going, it doesn't work for me. I need it to lay open on my desk for the day. I need it in my bag. I need it to be fairly sturdy. I need the ribbon. I had to do that way. So we just had to be patient with, there's a perfectionist in me going, it's not right. I'm not happy. But now they're just, much more pleasurable to use.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. And it sounds like, you know, even from the get-go, you were very clear on the vision and the purpose for these planners. But I do ask, just as a general practice with this show, you know, if there were any moments where, you know, that inner voice did, you know, pipe up unexpectedly and unwelcome, you know, as they do, or were you, so you're you're nodding and shaking. So
I don't think anyone's immune to that, are they? I think in whatever we do, particularly if we're putting our own work out to be criticised and judged, and my other greatest fear is criticism. So yes, of course, I think the timing and the inability to have any space to give it much thought, it just had to go. And so my belief is around anything that we do, if the necessity is not driving us, if there's not either somebody else's need, which is stronger, or our own, then we won't get anything done. And so usually if I just had the desire to release that for me, it wouldn't have been enough. That sneaky voice would have come in every time, who do you think you are? And that imposter syndrome and the whole thing. But the necessity was when I was speaking to people each day thinking they don't have the funds to be able to invest in this. They need something to keep their head in the right spot, and to feel like their life has purpose. It was much easier to do. But it was certainly there. Certainly. It's like, who are you to do this? Oh, of course.
And how did you combat that? What was your way of, you know, putting that voice in its place?
Luckily, I was honestly just talking to enough people each day and hearing that need. So it was, well, no, you need it. You know, you need it. Get out of your own way. And it was definitely stopping that and focusing on what people were really challenged with. And they were that fear and uncertainty, and just that ability to bring logic to a day and get out of that storyline and emotion, and feel that sense of control in a day was just really important at that point. And I didn't want people printing out pages every day and trying to do it that way. It's just every barrier we have to behaviour change will get in the way. So we just needed to make it as simple as possible. But I think it's a really nice thing for us all to remember that we all doubt. And so the moment we go to judge, I think we have to pull ourselves back and go, you know what, nothing in the world would get created for us to enjoy if everyone felt the resistance too much or was judged too much to ever release it. I think it's good learning for all of us.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show that when you've got a powerful why, like, you're always going to be propelled forward and you're always going to see it through. So
definitely.
beautiful. All right. And so what sort of feedback have you been getting from?
What I'm loving is, and my intention was, knowing personality types, was very much around how can I develop this so that it's okay for everyone? Because you say the word planner to the real playful type of personality type, they're like, I'm not planning my life. I like spontaneity. It's fun. So when they get to understand that actually their greatest fear is letting people down and not being liked, and when they actually plan a little bit more, they can fit more into their day, but they can still have the spontaneity. They can just be values driven about and intentional about what they're choosing. So what I've loved hearing the most is from people who aren't those planning type, to realize how it's given them this sense of self-confidence around actually they're more capable of following through on things and making things on time and all of those challenges that they have. So those weaknesses with our personality types, it's just, I'm watching how it strengthens each of them if we use it the way that we need to use it for us. With the kids, so with both, the best thing I love is when families use them together as a real ritual. I think building rituals in, it's proven to raise performance, any ritual-based thing that we do. And so when I sit with the kids, we normally do the planning for the next day the night before. And so then in the car on the way to school, they do all their morning intention work. And it's a really nice thing to do, to talk about meaningful things on the way to school. So what it's done with some families is bring just a few moments together, which wasn't there. So I'm loving that. And I'm loving people being able to see their patterns and see it in a light that's not self-critical, in a light that says, oh yeah, I understand how the brain works. It's not an identity. It's just something that I have to understand and build consistency around to change. But it's been very varied in terms of how people use it and what they're using and loving the most, different for different people. So many things.
Oh no, I can see how that lights you up. It's lovely.
Yeah, because we're hard on ourselves. And so it's just this really nice realization for people that we're all human. There's lots of things in play, but which things are the things I need to focus on now that are within my control to work on? And it just brings that personal integrity and accountability back, and rather than distraction and trying to do everything for everyone, which is great.
Absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. And, you know, the title of this show is the Phoenix Phenomenon. So I always ask every guest, you know, what sort of transformation did you see in yourself or even in your business in the process of becoming an author and getting these planners out into the world?
Yeah, so probably a few things, well, lots of things really, but I think from a business perspective, it's certainly given people an ability to toe dip into work. It's at a good price point so people can begin that process. Personally, definitely in my personality type, I don't normally doubt my ability to get things done. I can do. But what it's allowed me to do is to have much more confidence in the power of that work altogether, that synergistic effect of body, brain and behaviour. And that just means when, for someone who, you know, up until the age of 7 really didn't speak to people, up until about 35 years of age would choke on my saliva if someone spoke to me, it's given clarity around where, and actually looking back on, I was really hard on myself about my study, because as I got older, I thought I should have gone more into just straight nutrition, or I should have gone straight into this rather than the broader aspects. And I guess it's really allowed me to bring it together from a personal aspect to say there's a reason for that, because the broad elements are very important right now. There's not one solution to a mental health problem. There's not one solution to a health problem. So it's given me confidence in my work that it's important, and that it was right the way that it went to get me to where I am.
Absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. And I think what I find a lot too is that people don't realize how much they know and how much they have to share with the world until they actually have to sit down and document it in some way, shape or form. So
I agree. So much so. Yeah, definitely. And it's when you do that you look back and think, oh, all that challenge and all that difficulty it all makes sense. And we don't want to hear that when we're going through tough times, do we? We don't want to be told there'll be a gift in it, or, you know, that it'll make sense, but it really does when you give space and have to bring something together from a lifetime of work. So great.
Wonderful. And you mentioned the first incarnation of the Whole Life Success Planner was a soft cover. So tell me what it was like to hold that first physical copy with your hardcover, like your dream planner, essentially.
It's really funny. I know people get so excited. I felt nauseous. It arrived and I thought, oh no, same story. What if no one likes it? What if that whole dialogue came in? What if it's not good enough? What if the first page I open there's mistakes, or, you know, this whole range of things. So I had to deliver them because they were pre-orders. So we just got them out. But I actually didn't sit there and open it for about 10 days. I think I can't look at it. I had to just see the success of what other people were seeing before I was brave enough to actually open the doors. So bizarre. The kids one I was okay with because it was pretty and colourful, and I was just acknowledging the design work, not looking at the functionality of it. But no, it was hard. It was not what I would have expected, actually.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So did it take long for the feedback to start coming in and for you to kind of take that breath?
Yeah, no. Look, after a couple of weeks, postage was a bit slow, but after a couple of weeks, we started to see it come through, and yeah, it's great. I mean, and I got to use it then to start to go, yes, this is how it was meant to be designed, and and it does what it should do. I mean, from the outside, it looks like a planner, and yes, there's pages in it, those foundational pages around stress and emotional intelligence and all of those things, values, but what sits even in the daily words and the evening ones is all science backed. So it was very nerve-wracking to say, all right, well, I know that logically that makes sense based on that research, but when it all comes together in one book, will it be effective? As an outcome focused person, but then I was hearing those stories, and yeah, that was lovely. And it's what we need, I think, when we put something out there, is sometimes we only hear the negative feedback, and I haven't had any yet, which is lovely, but it's really nice to take, you know, and I appreciate people that take the time to write those little emails and messages. Lovely.
Excellent. Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm curious to find out, you know, obviously there are still restrictions on travel and, you know, events and that sort of thing going on. But what's your grand vision for the planner? Are you looking to establish it as a really strong pillar for your business going forward?
Yeah, look, it's starting to go that way. So I've got 3 online programs, reset programs. So there's body, let's say parenting, but it's about wellbeing, leading at home, and also a life reset. And so the planner blends with that. It's their personal accountability on what they're learning outside of it. And in workplaces, it's the foundational tool. I think corporate wellbeing or workplace wellness has become this thing that's so unaffordable for so many small businesses. So again, it's this really nice, I want to make health and wellbeing affordable, and unfortunately it's getting a long way from that. So it's this tool that I think it starts the process with people. They can do it on their terms, and it's affordable in workplaces. So it's certainly my first place to go with people to start the process, which is lovely, rather than just saying, you know what, sit one-to-one and let me ask you all about your deepest, darkest secrets. People don't want it. I wouldn't want to do that. So yes, it's like this, the first step in any of my work, and the thing that I will talk about with people in terms of their challenges. It's a really easy spot to start with things.
Absolutely. And sorry, my guess is that when people go through the planner and, you know, they take that time, they are allowing themselves to be vulnerable with themselves and, you know, exploring these different parts of, you know, their emotions, their feelings, what's going on in their body, that by the time they reach out and connect with you, they're going to be a lot clearer on what it is that they actually need assistance.
It's making my job so much easier. And those patterns, it's just lovely to give back that sense of control to people, which we really love. External landscape can't control our behaviours, we can, but if we don't really know what's happening underneath with all of it, it's really hard to feel that sense of control in behaviours, and to give space to actually consider what we want in life, what our values are, what's important to us, instead of repeating generations of values. So yeah, it's made life much, much easier. And for the kids, it's been lovely to watch their emotional intelligence grow, to be able to, when they're in anger, all of us, to be able to say, even if we act badly, to be able to circle back and say, I'm sorry, this is what was happening inside my body, this is the emotion, this is what the thinking was. Just makes it easier on everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know your kids are getting stuck into their planners, aren't they, at home, which is really awesome.
They sure are. They have their elements of gratitude in it too. So it's here. I got their one, which is all colourful and lovely. But I was chuckling today at some of their things that they were grateful for, and beautiful insights into them. But with both the plans, it's this nice thing of, it's not an all. They don't do it every day. That's not its intention. It's just a ritual that we come together and do. It gives them a moment to be heard. Their voice matters. All those things that in busy parenting we feel like we're doing badly. We feel like we're not giving them our ear properly. So there's lots of little minor benefits to it that I'm loving the process of. And if that helps other people, then that's awesome.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Thank you. And I would, as someone who has gone through the process of bringing these two planners to life, I'd love to get some advice that you might have for, aspiring authors who, they may be looking at planners or autobiographies, memoirs, to kind of get them off the fence and to get them bringing their dream to life. What would be your best advice for them?
My advice would be to find that necessity piece. It's a tough road on anything to step out and put something into the world. And when you're putting yourself up for judgment. So somebody look outside of self first, because we won't find the necessity within ourselves unless we've been perhaps through real trauma. So it would be find the necessity, find somebody else's story, someone else's reason to need to have that book. And that's your driver. And you would have to go to that. Again, the brain doesn't know what's real and what's not. So revisiting that story of that person multiple times a day, and watching that sneaky brain, that work of pattern interrupting to say, that conviction of, I can do this person needs to hear it, and keep chugging forward. And the gifts on the other side are great, but that normalizing too, that what I'm feeling in that self-doubt, there is not one human being that doesn't have that. We've just got to stop listening to it as much as we do.
Absolutely. And you probably wouldn't be surprised by this, but every single guest that I've had on the show since I started has had that self-doubt piece going on, for sure. Like even, international bestsellers, they still get it when they're releasing their latest book. So
it's just that really nice bit of the brain saying, be careful, do a good job. That's all it is. It's not there to say you're not good enough, but we can interpret it as that if we choose to. It's watching it. So sneaky.
Absolutely. That's great. And hopefully everyone's a lot more aware of that after hearing your chat today. So thank you. Before I let you go, I would love to give people some ideas of how they can connect with you, how they can get their hands on some of these beautiful planners and get started at home.
Yeah, so my website is nextgenerationwellness.com.au. I'm across all the social platforms except Twitter and TikTok. But all the other ones, I'm there. If you're searching Next Generation Wellness, that's where you'll find me. And the planners are on the website, and they're linked through most of the social channels too. There's a whole range of things. So there's just things to digest about a lot of those virtues around things like confidence and connection and all those things that we don't grow up learning. And they're just really nice starting points for people as well.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. We'll make sure that, if anything, and Erin has shared a lot with us today, but if anything has connected with you, that you check out the platforms, get your hands on some of these planners and just go to town. I think you'd be very pleasantly surprised with what you're able to uncover about yourself. And, as Erin's mentioned, in these incredibly busy times, just taking that space for yourself can make the world of difference in the way that you are feeling, the way that you're interacting with the people around you. So such a beautiful resource to have. So thank you so much for your time today, Erin, and for sharing everything that you have.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Okay, take care.